Hey y'all, welcome to Shade in the City. It's your girl Treese here, and of course, I'm here to give you season 1, episode 168 of Beyond the Gates. As we know, there was no episode today, this good Monday, so I took my time. I wasn't gonna rush. All right. I appreciate y'all being here with me. If you haven't already, all of my Shade Squad and all of my new viewers, please go ahead and do me a favor. Hit that like button. And if you're liking the vibe, but you have not yet subscribed, please go ahead and do so and join the family, okay? Y'all, let's go ahead and get right into it because you know it's a lot to get into, and you know I got a lot to get off my chest. Okay? So let's get into it and let's get shady.
Lights drip on the skyline paint. Shade in the city, true heels like a banger. I said it, I meant it, no need for disclaimers. Haters right away, but they just false claimers. Concrete beats are heavy like cinder. Looking for one, but the streets feel winter. No filters, no edits, I'm raw with my splinters. My life a movie, they watching the trailers. I'm not gonna hold you. Shade in the city, the vibe and the mold. You like and subscribe if you feeling the vibe. This is my word, I just let you inside. City, I'm not gonna hold you. Shade in the city, my words gon' console you. Like and subscribe if you feeling the vibe.
We kicked this episode off. Ted comes to the hospital. He greets Shanice, and she's trolling him about the whole incident that happened with Carlton. But they're actually doing a little flirtation. Okay. Yeah. So Ted assures her that there's not going to be any more tussling in the lobby, and he apologizes, that it went down at work. And so Shanice asked him, well, what do you do to calm your mind? And, are you going to be able to work with the man that's actively pursuing the woman that you're madly in love with? And of course, Ted got to think about it. So Nicole makes a trip by the Smarty house to drop off breakfast. And Smitty was like, you do know Samantha's on lockdown, right? And she was like, yeah, I just wanted to bring some of her favorite things. I remember how Martin and Kat used to pout when they were punished. And I was like, no, Grandma, no. That's what we shouldn't be doing. Okay. We're not rewarding bad behavior. Nicole, you should know better. Smitty was like, I feel like I'm being punished too. And I said, I understand. I understand from one parent to another. Okay. So he knows that, if this girl didn't have Chelsea Cat, she would lose her mind. So Nicole mentions, well, you know what? I actually thought it would be a good idea if she did some work for Winterfest. And, I want the entire family on deck. And so maybe she can, work with the socials and, pass out some flyers, attract some younger attention. And so Smitty was like, yeah, that's a good idea. And hopefully, she'll open up to somebody in the family about Nathan. So he was like, but let me talk to Martin first because we've agreed that we are making all of our decisions together from now on. And so Nicole was like, okay, I see y'all working together. And so Smitty mentions how, well, we did have a family game night recently, and it did go well. So I think the mood is starting to lighten only for Samantha and Tyrell to come downstairs fussing. Because I guess Tyrell was in the bathroom too long for her liking, and she just mad. She mad. She was being a bee. I'm sorry. It was what it was. Okay. So Smitty breaks the whole thing up and was like, can you at least say hi to your grandmother? You know what I'm saying? I love when Tyrell questioned, well, why is she getting rewarded again for bad behavior and she's grounded? He was like, am I going to get an Xbox if I get caught making out on the couch with Jessica? I said, the boy got valid points. Because I still didn't understand that. So Smitty is like, what the hell is wrong with y'all? And so Tyrell was like, it ain't me, it's that one. She upset because she going through Nathan withdrawal syndrome. And so Nicole tells Samantha, well, sometimes people lash out at others because it's safer than the alternative. And she asked Samantha, so is that why you're going off on Tyrell? And Samantha said, damn it, it's my phone, it's my freedom, it's my friends. Martin is trying to take away my life all because I like a boy. And I don't think that's fair. And so Smitty tells her, baby, you are rewriting history, okay? Samantha was like, all right, I screwed up having Nathan over here. And so she still feels like, that's that y'all grounded me for how I feel. And instead of talking to me about it, you're locking me up. And I don't think the punishment fits the crime. And I said, no, it does. It does. Yeah, you a month is about a good. You lucky it wasn't about a good. You weren't like for a quarter. Okay, I'm just saying. I'm gonna skirt through this real quick because it really wasn't nothing. Pamela shows up at Danny's house. Lets her know she ain't coming to LA with her because she has this female basketball player that plays in the WNBA that she's trying to recruit for their agency. Astrid, I believe her name was. So I guess maybe we'll meet her. Who knows? I don't know. But anyway, she just tries to assure Andre and Danny that they'll be all right. Okay. And, gives them their itinerary. That's all I got for them. So y'all know this is what I really wanted to get to. Okay. So Martin meets Kat down at the coffee shop and he starts to grill her about the conversation that Samantha overheard. And so Martin is waiting to hear Kat's explanation on why Samantha overheard how her aunt went from a virgin to a sex goddess. So Kat was like, "Oh, she told you?" And he was like, "No, she told mama actually." And she was pretty chill about it. And Kat was like, "Oh, but you ain't." And so he asked her, how could you and Chelsea be so careless? And so Kat was like, "Look, don't be mad at Chelsea. I might have gotten carried away, but I had no idea that Samantha was over here ear hustling in our conversation. But I do take full responsibility." And so Martin tells her, "Yeah, you should, because this is your fault and yours alone." And I said, "Oh, no, that's what we're not going to do, Martin. We are not going to act like this little girl is not a little fast ass little girl. Okay. And she out here trying to pass it out. That ain't Kat's fault. She was trying to do that, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there." Kat has to reiterate again, "Martin, I didn't know the girl was listening. I didn't even know she was in earshot." And so Martin was like, "Well, it doesn't matter because with Samantha around, that's not a work safe conversation." So Kat said, "Okay." But it's 2025, Martin, and it's not going to be the first or the last time that Samantha is going to hear about some sex. All right. And so then Martin starts going on about, "Well, no, Samantha idolizes you and Chelsea, and she wants to walk in your footsteps, not later, right now." Okay. And Kat said, "Okay." And I don't think it's a big deal. It's not like Samantha went and pounced on some boy just because she overheard my conversation. When Martin has to tell her about him and Smitty finding Samantha about to have some sex with Nathan on the couch, the big comfy couch, because ain't nobody got beds or bedrooms except Danny and Naomi and Jacob. Okay. And he tells her that, he believes it's because and he tells her that he believes because of what Samantha heard, that's why she reacted the way she did. Kat stops him and tells Martin, "Look, I actually had a conversation with her after she overheard my conversation to make sure we were clear that we just not going out giving it out. Okay." And he was like, "Well, your actions speak louder than words." And so Kat was like, "So which one is it? Is it my actions or is it my words? Because even though I corrected it, it's still my fault." So Martin tells her, "And it is, because Samantha can't magically unhear." And I said, "Oh, Martin, we had come so far. I can't. I thought you were somebody different. You showed us, you showed Smitty. You were, I thought I could like you. But deep down inside, you can't help but be an asshole. That is who you are. That is embedded in you. Maybe you get it from your father. Okay. But from the cat community, I won't say I'm the president. I may be the vice or the chair or something like that. But you know what I'm saying? But from the cat community collectively, Martin, I said it once on Twitter and I say it again. You and your high booty can kiss all of our asses. Okay. Respectfully. Okay. So he's blaming Kat for her negligence and how, this could have impacted Samantha's life so much. And Kat said, "Martin, you need to take it down a couple notches, okay?" And Martin was like, "And I can't. And when you have a kid that's your whole world, then you'll understand." And Kat said, "First of all, I love my niece, and I have no intentions of ever doing anything to hurt either my niece or my nephew." And so Martin was like, "It's not about your intentions." And he scolds her because he was like, "I thought you would be a good role model, conscientious. And unfortunately, you just want to be the fun auntie." I said, "Oh, talk about team too much, taking it too far." Okay. Now, this is the one time, this is the part that Catherine, again, I'm on the board in the cat community. Okay. So, but this is where I had to get you. Okay. So then Kat decided to remind him how she waited well until adulthood to lose her virginity and got into a healthy, respectful relationship with someone who loves her and says, wouldn't you want Samantha to hear about that? And tells him, actually, I should be the person that Samantha's talking to. I'm not saying that you cannot advise your little niece. However, I think the part for me, it was healthy, respectful relationship. If I was Martin, I would have looked at Kat and I would have said, didn't that man cheat on you with Eva? And dropped the mic and walked out. Now that's one thing you ain't gonna do. That's one thing you ain't gonna do, Catherine. Okay? You are far from being in a healthy relationship, okay? And you're lucky that Martin doesn't have a mouth like me, because I would have said it. All right. Love you though. All right. So basically, Kat is like, okay, Martin, you know what? Watch yourself before you say something you regret. And Martin is like, how foolish of me to hand my daughter over to someone who's a bad influence in the first place. I said, you again, team too much. All right. So Kat was like, oh, so I'm such a bad influence, but I stopped your daughter from doing it down at the boom boom room on the same sofa that me and Chelsea got it in on. How about that? Catch me outside. And so, of course, Martin is like, what? She had him and you didn't tell me. And she was like, no, I talked to Samantha. I kicked that boy out of here. I talked to Samantha and I let her know that she needed to go talk to you, which she did. And I minded my business. As her auntie, she needs to be able to trust me. And of course, this pisses Martin off even more. So he just said, you know what? I got something better for your ass. She is no longer employed at Chelsea Cat. And so Cat is like, yo, don't do that. You know she gonna lose her. I wouldn't do that if I were you. And so she was like, you know that girl loved working there. And he said, she'll find something else to love. I said, well, not Martin is a little bit much, but we know that. We knew that. They just fooled us for a couple months. Anyway. So then back over at Danny's, after Pam leaves, so Danny realizes that Andre is a little bit nervous about being, in front of the camera. And so realizes that he needs a, little boost of confidence. And so she asked him to trust her before she leads him to the bedroom. And I said, okay, Danny. Now back at Garland Memorial, Shanice and Ted are still talking, and he talks about how, he can't throw his practice away that he and Carlton built. And so Shanice is still flirting. You're such a great plastic surgeon, and you just be out here working miracles. And so my notes say they're definitely flirting. And so she was like, how do you balance, work against the love of your life? And so he said, look, I am no longer trying to fix things with Nicole, and I just hope things land where they're supposed to be. And I said, okay, that was Shanice kept picking to see if he was really trying to get over her and when she could slip her foot in the door, okay? Shanice asked, oh, so is that hope that fate takes the wheel and brings you and Nicole back together? And Ted said, I'm hoping for everything and everyone to shake out like it's supposed to. So Shanice was like, even Carlton? And he said, yeah, even my Carlton. So she was like, oh, the high road suits you, sir. Okay. And Ted said, well, I could stay the same for you. The fact that you just even still talking to me. And she was like, why would I stop talking to you? We're colleagues and we're friends. Mm-hmm. So Ted brings up, how people normally choose sides in a divorce or breakup, especially when one side is the Duprees. And so Shanice was like, look, y'all, you and Nicole have both known me since I've been fresh out of nursing school, and I ain't giving either of y'all up. So that'll be very interesting. That's why I said when I was on Really Bees Live, I don't like this for Shanice because it's messy. And I do think she values the relationship she has with Nicole. So he was like, thank you for not making me feel like a lump of guilt. And he was like, and I damn sure don't want to lose a friendship with the woman that runs the place, just as Eva is walking up. And so she's sitting there. I said, just like a mama, just like a mama. So Eva claims, I was trying to reach you about this patient, Mr. Lindquist. I'm gonna go through this real fast because do we really care for real? But his insurance didn't sign off on his work, so Ted can't scrub in. Ted is like, if this man don't get this procedure, his quality of life will be degraded a little bit. And so Eva was like, well, I'll try the carry again. And so Shanice was like, look, at this stage in the game, trying to call an insurance company and get compassion, and we ain't really got the time to do that. That's not. That's probably ain't it. So Ted was like, I'll do it pro bono. And Shanice said, I love you. And that's that. You got a beautiful spurt. You got a beautiful spurt. However, not only you get paid, the OR, like it's other people that, yeah, we got to divvy out money to. So yeah, it don't really work like that. Okay. So of course, well, I can pay for it, or mama can pay for it. And, when we didn't have insurance and Alan was sick and we were struggling, and she would hate to see somebody going through this. And so, of course, she, runs over and gets on the phone and calls her mama, hoping that she gonna help. And I said, well, don't worry. I'll wait. Back over at the Smarty house, Samantha is begging Smitty to talk to Martin on her behalf. And that's when Nicole steps in and said, actually, you need to listen to both your parents, okay? And she said, and maybe this, month will be a reset with you and Nathan. And so, of course, man, you gonna forget about me. And so Tyrell said, Nathan is lame anyway, and I don't even understand why you like that boy. Samantha's upset, and she's like, no one's on my side. And so Smitty tries to humor her and tells her, look, well, Nicole had this idea for you to do some work at Winterfest, which of course makes Samantha happy because she's just happy to find a way out the house so she can find a way to connect with Nathan. Let's keep it 100. Let's keep it 100. So Smitty tells her, well, we need to make sure your daddy's on board, but you checking your attitude and having better behavior would help. Kat goes marching into Nicole's office and tells her, look, your son is tripping. Okay. And she tells her about how Martin spoke to her. Nicole's response is, well, maybe you and Chelsea should have been quieter when discussing your sex lives. Tell us you hate Kat without telling us. Because that's what this episode was. Tell us you hate Kat. I'm going to get off my council member chair. Okay. So Kat reiterates again. First of all, I didn't mean for Samantha to overhear. And still, I talked to the girl about it. It was like, Martin acts like I do the most when I literally just lost my virginity 5 minutes ago. And I said that part. Now, Nicole acknowledges, yes, it was a meaningful step and one you didn't rush into. So she was like, for Martin to know that and then think that I would carelessly talk about sex with my niece hurts. And so Nicole tells her, look, Martin's just terrified of Samantha making big mistakes and becoming a whore. Okay? So Kat said, well, that does not excuse how he treated me. Okay, Miss Therapist. So Nicole says, it's not, but he's still working on his temper. And you know what? I saw something the other day. It was a post or something, but it said something about parents who, especially mothers, who raise their daughters and love their sons. And I thought it was wild because this is what this gives me. It gives me that y'all probably made Kat do a lot of shit that y'all would never have asked of Martin. And y'all just gonna love him despite his flaws and all. But Kat catches all the hell. Is it me? Okay. Just a thought I had, Nicole is like, he's still working on his temper. And Kat was like, well, he need to work harder. And then she tells her how Martin just rage quit Samantha's job at Chelsea Kat. And Nicole was like, oh, she gonna be devastated. So Kat warns Nicole that Samantha has every right to go off. And she was like, and if I were you, Mom, I'd step in. And Nicole said, I ain't getting into nobody's parenting and how they raise their kids. So Nicole was like, I thought Martin had calmed down. And Kat says, no, girl, he out of control. He is out of control. And so Kat admits, and unfortunately, I did end up spilling the tea about Samantha being in the boom boom room with Nathan. And she said, but I told him everything that I did and how I wanted, Samantha to tell him on her own. And so Nicole was like, yeah, you did what you thought was right. Kat wants Nicole, look, I really feel like if Martin keeps acting like so, he's going to lose Samantha forever. So Martin returns home and Samantha greets him at the door, smiling in his face because she's trying to get some of her privileges back. So Smitty tells Martin about Nicole wanting Samantha to work on Winterfest, and Samantha is pleading her case. And Martin said, well, you're gonna have a lot of extra time because today was your last day at Chelsea Cat. And so Samantha is outraged that her daddy would quit her job for her. And Tyrell comes down like, what is all the yelling about? And so Martin tells her, I found out about you bringing Nathan down over there to the boom boom room, and said, so I can't even trust you to go to work and work. And I said, well, it's that. And that's why I bet you she won't even be able to do the Winterfest. Watch. Because they can't trust her to do what she said, because she's going to do anything to try to get to Nathan. Samantha is acting like a dog in heat. Let's just call a thing a thing. Okay. Samantha was like, well, I didn't tell you about Kat because I knew you were going to yell at her like you always do. I like Nathan and I made a mistake, but why are you taking my dreams away? So she said, I will never forgive you for this. And so Tyrell was like, she ain't mean that. She ain't mean that. And Samantha said, no, I meant every damn word. I said, oh, Samantha Richardson Smith. Martin is like, we don't talk like that in this house. And Samantha said, so maybe I shouldn't be in the house. And she grabbed her little backpack and she looked at Martin and she said, you should have left me where I was. I might have been happier. And walks out the door. I said, Tyrell goes running after her. And then we see Smitty later on call June, who didn't happen to be at work, but Eric down at Orphe Jeans did see Samantha there. So she texted Tyrell and, he's going over there to meet her now. And so Martin was like, I could not be more happy that they reconnected with their mama. Okay. Because these kids they're a lot. They're a lot. All right. So Martin wants to go down to Orphe Jeans and Smitty said, let Tyrell and Samantha be. And so Martin was like, yeah, I be pushing too hard. Yes. So Smitty was like, and, tries to give him some grace and said, I know you're just concerned or whatever. And he said, but, Samantha's going to come around. And of course, we got to expect Samantha to push. She's, becoming an adult. So, but he told Martin, we can't hold Samantha to a higher standard than we do ourselves. And so then he starts to get on Martin about why he would quit Samantha's job without talking to him first. And I said, see, because the old Martin is back. He don't give a damn what you got to say. You have no input. That's why. So back over at Danny's house, she goes to put on some lingerie and has Andre practicing, being comfortable in front of the camera. And they start reviewing the pictures. And so Danny was like, oh, you cool? You ready for the real thing? And so Andre was like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, okay, here we come, Forrester Creations. Back over at Garland Memorial, Ted comes out asking Shanice for an update on Mr. Lindquist. And so Shanice was like, I was able to move the procedure back an hour, but we still waiting to find out if Leslie is going to want to be charitable. Nicole and Kat happen to come out of Nicole's office and Eva jumps up like, oh my God, Dad. So, Leslie said she paid for it. She'd be happy to be Mr. Lindquist's sugar mama. And she's going to cover the surgery. Kat walks over and said, what did you just call him? And so Eva said, I called him Dad because that's who he is. So Ted said, Kat, I asked Eva to call me Dad. Kat tells him, well, you know what? I hope you enjoy the one daughter that you got left because you can't have us both. And then she walks off. Shanice was like, I ain't trying to be insensitive, but we need to go ahead with this procedure for Mr. Lindquist. We going to do this or not? Ted's like, I'll find Kat later. I said, okay. And then this is the cherry on top. So Eva looks at Nicole and asks her, are you going to go after her? And Nicole said, nah. Kat and Ted need to figure that out on their own. And his relationship with the both of y'all is for him to work out. Like that ain't your child? Tell us you hate Kat without telling us you hate her. And then we end the episode with Samantha sitting down at Orphe Jean sulking when, Tyrell finds her. And that was it, y'all, for episode 168. Hopefully it'll get cracking and be good tomorrow on a good Tuesday. Happy Veterans Day to all my vets out there in advance. And yeah, y'all, go ahead and do me a favor. Please hit that like button. Make sure that you guys comment. Make sure you subscribe and make sure you hit the notification bell. Make sure you're following us on all the platforms. That's the TikTok, the Twitter, the Facebook, the IG, the Blue Sky, and the Lemonade. And yeah, y'all, I will catch you tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow. No, I'm joking. But yeah, I'll see y'all tomorrow for another recap of Beyond the Gates. Bye bye.